time for the meet and greet. Meet and greet. It's time for the meet and greet.
Hello guys, this is Asavari's meeting show 34 and here we present our star speaker Aaron Spring. So welcome Aaron to Asavari's meeting show 34. We have a full playlist of Aaron's meetings with Asavari. And Aaron, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure, and thank you for having me. I'm Aaron Spring. I am a law student, a community organizer, and a philanthropist in Asavari. I am an elected official, but I'm not here as an elected official. I'm here as a private citizen, and it's good to be back. I always love coming on.
That's indeed my great pleasure. It's indeed Asavari's great pleasure. Let's talk about Father's Day. So you are not a father, I'm not a father, but we both have fathers and we respect our fathers. And I have a few quotes and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Today and every day, I appreciate everything you do for our family. Who needs superheroes when the world has dads like you? Anyone can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad. No matter how old I get, I will never stop needing my dad. I should tell you this more often, but I love you. Enjoy your special day. Happy Father's Day. So Aaron, what is your Father's Day message?
So I think, obviously shout out to all the fathers out there, and I hope they're having a great day. But I think we've come to a critical point in this country where we have a lot of absentee fathers and a lot of fathers not doing enough. So my Father's Day message is fathers need to step up and actually do more. We're seeing a litany of issues in this country, from social to economic, to even political. And I think most of them stem from the fact that we have so many broken homes in this country and so many fatherless homes in this country. So my message is to the fathers that are doing a good job. Thank you for all you do. Continue to keep up the great work. But my message is also stern, and those that aren't doing enough and those that can do more, I think they need to do more, because the moral fabric of this country depends on that. So I would leave off my Father's Day message with that. Thank you. But also some need to reflect and do more for their kids. Right.
Let's talk about some of the crucial issues. So the first one is the gun control package. The Democratic-led House on Wednesday passed legislation to tighten the nation's gun laws as lawmakers in both chambers mount a response to a pair of mass shootings in New York and Texas that jolted the nation. The lower chamber on Thursday also approved 224-202 legislation that would allow family members and law enforcement to obtain an extreme risk protection order from a federal court to temporarily remove access to firearms to those deemed a danger to themselves or others. Called the Protecting Our Kids Act, the broader gun control legislation is a package of 8 bills that cleared the House Judiciary Committee along party lines last week. The House's action comes after members of the Oversight and Reform Committee heard wrenching testimony from a 4th grader who survived the Robb Elementary shooting, as well as from people who lost loved ones in the mass shootings in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. So Aaron, my question to you is, what is your opinion about the Second Amendment and NRA?
So I think the issue with these gun control packages and legislation is we're assuming that criminals are going to follow the law, which they don't do anyway. Cocaine is banned and criminals still do it. So banning guns is not going to actually solve any issues. What it's actually going to do is make it harder for law-abiding citizens, such as myself, to engage in our Second Amendment rights. If you look at these cities like New York City and Washington, D.C. and Chicago, they have the strictest gun laws in the country and they have the most gun crime. Why is that? Because criminals do not follow the law. So I don't have a strong opinion of the NRA. I don't have a high opinion of any lobbying group for that matter. But I do think it's important that we separate the Second Amendment and the law-abiding citizens from the criminals who are breaking the law. And I don't think there's anything government can do to actually stop any of this crime. And going back to our first topic, which was Father's Day message, part of the solution here is getting fathers and getting dads back into the equation, into these broken homes, and solving some of these issues and bringing family life back together. That will stop some of this criminal activity. That will stop some of this gang violence. And that'll stop these people from obtaining illegal guns to commit crimes such as the ones we're seeing, in Buffalo, Texas, on the streets of Chicago every single day. So I don't think it's right to restrict law-abiding citizens and restrict my Second Amendment for something I've never broken or any law I've never violated. So I will leave it at that. Or actually, let me give you an analogy here. This is a wolf attacking a flock of sheep. And instead of us removing the teeth from the wolf, we decide we're going to remove the teeth from the sheep, and that'll somehow protect us. We need to use common sense here, stop going after law-abiding citizens, and crack down on the criminals, as well as fix these broken homes if we're going to solve gun violence in this country. I don't think there's anything legislation will do to solve that.
So, Aaron, if you ever become the Commander-in-Chief of United States of America, will you bring any change to the amendment and Constitution?
So we have to. I would not bring any changes to the Constitution. No, the Constitution is written as is, and it's not meant to change those specific amendments the way they're written. What we need to do is, one, focus on mental health in this country. We have a serious mental health problem going on, and we need to address that. Part of which, again, comes from the broken homes aspect. And if we can fix the broken homes and bring family life back together, a lot of this stuff goes away. The AR-15 has been around for 60 something years now. Why is it that most of the mass shootings have happened in the last 15, 20 years? Because we've had exposure to all the social media, exposure to all these violent video games. The family unit has been completely broken down. So guns are not the problem. Morals and values are the problem. I would not change the Second Amendment. All 50 states have background checks involved. There's federal background checks. We do need red flag to better, look at some of these people's mental health. But this is a mental health problem. It's not a gun problem. If I leave my shotgun,
what about the anger management issue? Why people are becoming so angry that they pull the guns and fire? What is the revenge all about? I mean, why they cannot control their temperament? Their wrath, their anger.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the gun violence in this country, if we look at, let's take one city, Chicago, is fueled around drugs and fueled around gangs. So the anger is stemming from territorial issues. The anger is stemming from economic disparity, or economic despair, rather, I should say. People are mad of their situation. They're mad that somebody else is making it and they're not, and they're trying to pick a scapegoat. And so anger management is definitely part of the issue, but that goes into the background check. Again, we have federal background checks in this country that if we can strengthen them a little bit more to address mental health as well, I think you take that aspect away. But most of the gun crime, again, is happening illegally with illegally obtained guns. More than 75% of the gun crime in this country is done with illegally obtained handguns by gang members. So what does that tell us? That, again, there's fights over economics within cities, right? The drug wars, the drug trades, the prostitution trade, all these different illegal industries have to be enforced by using guns between these gangs. So I would not necessarily say it's a law-abiding issue, it's a criminal issue. And the anger management, you hit a good point there, but it's also a mental issue thing. So we need to look better at mental health. We need to look better at providing youth jobs, because youth are joining gangs instead of becoming productive members of society, because there's not enough jobs available. And this leads to that culture of drugs and prostitution, which is then protected by illegally obtained handguns. So I think we also need to do better for our inner city youth in providing opportunity and jobs, so that they're not going into gangs, that they're not engaging in this illegal gun activity.
And what about increasing or escalating the security of the school zones, so that the SWAT team or the police, can come instantly and save some lives?
Yeah, I mean, we just sent $44 billion to the Ukraine, and we don't even have armed guards in our school. We have 500,000 homeless people in this country, 50,000 of which are veterans. Some of them are mentally ill, others are just down in their luck. Why are we not having armed veterans in every single school? This would solve the veteran joblessness
That's a
issue,
very good point.
right? This would also provide jobs to veterans. It would make people feel safe. Do you know 14% of our military families? I just came out today. 14% of our military families are on food stamps or government aid. That's a problem. So how do we stop that? We need to ensure that when they're out of the military or when they're out of the reserves, that they have ample jobs, and that could include security within schools. There's thousands and thousands of schools in this country. We can provide veterans with work by giving them security jobs. These are trained people. They serve this country. They love this country. And let's protect the children with people who know how to use a gun, who are properly trained. And we protect everything with guns. You ever see, like, when you're at the bank and the bank truck rolls up and there's 4 armed guards on it? We protect our money with guns, but we won't protect our children with guns. I mean, it's insanity. And the other thing is, schools are usually, you see a sign at the top of the school, gun-free zone. So that tells the criminal, if nobody in the school has a gun, I can go in there and do whatever I want, because they know nobody's going to stop them. Well, now if you have a new sign that says school guarded by armed veteran, that criminal is going to think twice before going in to commit a crime and shoot up children. So I think the security issue is a great issue to talk about. And I think it lies in retired veterans or retired police officers and ensuring that they are armed and trained properly to stop a mass shooting from happening.
That's an excellent point. I mean, armed veterans should be installed as much as possible because they are well trained and they are very patriotic. I mean, they will also sacrifice, to protect the kids.
I check out, if you look up on just Google 72 hours of gun violence in this country, it'll list all the shootings in the United States and over the last 72 hours. And it's usually in inner cities and concentrated heavily in poorer neighborhoods where there is a lot of gang violence. But the numbers could very well be 200,000 globally. I just don't know.
Yeah, global. I'm talking about global. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are talking about United States of America and then trying to go beyond and see that, what is the total number of casualties caused by the gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's really very sad. So the next discussion is very important, which is right now ongoing, and it is about the January 6th hearings. So, Mr. Aaron Spring, you are Republican, okay? And I know that you may not like this topic because this is not in my support to Mr. Trump.
That's okay. That's okay. That's part of the beauty of this conversation is sometimes it never gets confrontational, but sometimes we're going to disagree, and that's okay.
So former President Trump on Monday issued a 12-page rebuttal to testimony and evidence presented by a House committee investigating the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, accusing Democrats of seeking to distract from a series of domestic issues facing the country. In the 12-page document, Trump repeats a handful of unproven claims to assert the 2020 election was stolen from him and rigged in favor of Democrats, including some that were brought up during testimony by former Trump campaign and administration officials. So let me stop over here and ask that what's going on? What happened?
Right. So, look, anybody who committed a crime on January 6th should be prosecuted and to the fullest extent of the law. Anybody who committed a crime should absolutely be in jail. That's a fact. That's what we know. That's what this country was founded on, law and order. But here's what I don't get. We're a year and a half in to these hearings, and it's become political theater at this point. They had a whole, ABC producer put on, was the one who put them on primetime television, and they had a, professional, choreography and everything like that. And, the way the lights were, I mean, this is ridiculous. We are $31 trillion in debt. Inflation is through the roof. Our economy is tanking right now. The southern border is wide open. Crime is going up in every major city. Why are we still focused on this? I don't get it. I'm totally okay with holding people accountable. Again, if you broke the law, you should be in jail. You should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But why is it we have a committee for this, but there's no committee for the 276 riots that caused billions of dollars in property damage from summer 2020 up until December 2020? I mean, this is crazy. If we're going to prosecute, if we're going to hold committees on treason and domestic terrorism, then it has to go both ways. You have to go after the people, the Proud Boys and all those nut jobs who attacked on January 6th, but you have to go after Antifa too, who burned down buildings and who attacked and actually they killed people. I mean, if you look at the autonomous zone in Seattle they created, people died in that. So that's part of my issue with this. And here's the other thing I don't get. People keep talking about we need to protect our institutions. And I agree 100%. We do need to protect our institutions. So when the Capitol was breached and attacked, those people should be prosecuted. But how come we only protect our institutions when it's the crazy right-wing people attacking it? There's no protection of the Supreme Court institution. Justice Kavanaugh was just, there was an assassination attempt on him the other day, or attempted assassination, and nobody talks about that. There was a federal building burned down in Seattle. Nobody talks about that. So we talk about protecting our institutions, and I totally agree with that, but we need to protect all of our federal institutions, not just the ones that fit a specific political narrative. So again, the people who committed a crime, they should be prosecuted, but we need to be fair and balanced in how we apply the law. And if you burn down a building in Seattle during summer 2020, you should be in prison. If you breached the Capitol on January 6th and committed a crime, you should be in prison. But we can't just let our politics cloud law and order and morality.
So coming back to the point, to be continued, one section of Trump's statement focuses on ballot trafficking claims, for which he cites the Dinesh D'Souza's documentary 2000 Mules. In testimony shown earlier Monday, former Attorney General William Barr laughed at the mention of the film, saying he was unimpressed with it and dismissed the idea that it proved widespread fraud. So, being a Republican, do you defend Mr. Trump? And what is the justification?
I don't. And here's why I don't defend it. We are now in 2022. Okay. This election was 2 years ago. We're coming up halfway through 2022 into 2023. All of the issues are on the Republican side. The economy is on our side, right? Because it's tanking, inflation's through the roof. Crime is on our side. Crime is rising in every major city. The southern border is unprotected. You have Russia and China moving vastly and greatly to expand their influence. Why are we still focused on 2020 and on quote unquote fraud that was never taken up by the courts? We are looking back, and it's to the detriment of the Republican Party. We need to look forward and provide the people with solutions and actual policy decisions. Every time we look back at 2020 and talk about fraud and talk about, stolen election, we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we're taking away from our actual messaging, which should be on the issues that matter to the American people. Again, our economy is in shambles. Inflation's through the roof. Gasoline's at $5 a gallon. And we're talking about voter fraud. I mean, the Republican Party.
Aaron, it actually happened. I was watching the documentary, of this entire thing. It actually happened. And then, the Proud Boys, they were communicating with each other through the Zello app. And also, Mr. Trump, his statements in the Twitter that came in the limelight. So this actually happened, which actually injured 150 plus, security personnel. And I think there has been some casualties also. So there is simply no justification. I completely agree with you that, it is one way to deviate the public from the real issues, the current issues, so that, people, they're busy in discussing about the incident which happened 2 years ago, okay? Or maybe year and a half, it's January, not 2 years ago, but 2021, January 6th. So I completely agree with you on that issue, but this is a real incident.
No, I agree with that. And that's why I said anybody who committed a crime should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. but why are we televising this? Why are we publishing this in every single major news outlet that there's this commission? I would like to see reports of people being prosecuted and convicted of a crime, not all these theoretical probabilities of Trump may get indicted or this person may have committed a crime. If they committed a crime, then that's up to the judicial system and the DOJ to investigate and prosecute. It's not up to the public, the court of public opinion. They're basically trying to say, you and I should be determining whether people are guilty or not guilty. That's up to a judge. That's up to a prosecutor. That's up to a jury at the end of the day. It's not up to us. So what I'm saying here is let the court system take its role. Let the court system fulfill its role in prosecuting people. And once all that comes out, then you publish stuff. And I agree that this happened and it's a very serious thing. And again, these people should be prosecuted. If you tried to commit treason, you should be prosecuted for treason. But this should not be on primetime television a year and a half later, unless you have some sort of results that you're telling me that, that somebody's being indicted, that somebody's being convicted. I shouldn't base my opinions on opinions of lawmakers. I should be basing my opinions on facts found in a court of law. So that's all I'm saying. I agree. This is a serious thing. I'm not trying to diminish it at all. I'm just saying that the way Congress is going about it, it really should be left to the courts to decide.
And it is the breaking news right now. So do you think that Mr. Trump will make a comeback in 2024?
I personally want DeSantis, but I think Trump has too big of an ego not to run. We know this. He's a very, he's got this bravado. He's this macho guy. He doesn't like to lose. It's all about winning. So yeah, I think he's going to come back and run. But I'm hoping it's DeSantis who's our nominee. I really like Ron DeSantis out of Florida, but I think Trump will probably run, but in the primary, DeSantis has my vote.
So do you think that Mr. Trump is a complete embarrassment of your party?
I wouldn't say that, no, but I wish he would shut up sometimes. Policy-wise, he was a phenomenal president. Policy-wise, I think he was kind of like Reagan in the economic policies he took and the strongman attitude he took against foreign powers. It's just he didn't know how to shut up. He didn't know how to just get a victory and run with the victory, and that was his problem. It was all about him. It was all about his tweets. It was all about his rhetoric. And sometimes you have to just let your results speak for themselves. And had he done that, he would have been reelected. If you look at who voted against him and why he lost certain states, it was well-educated swing state voters in the suburbs who benefited off of his policies, but did not like his rhetoric. So, he's not an embarrassment per se because he did have great policies, but the rhetoric is definitely concerning. And I think, he needs to tone it down if he's going to run again and win well-educated people back.
But see, January 6, 2021 is an attempted coup, okay? And the Proud Boys claim that they are super patriotic. So what is your opinion about the attempted coup and about the Proud Boys?
Anybody who's a patriot would not try to overthrow the U.S. government. So that right off the bat, diminishes their whole argument. Look, it was an embarrassment what happened that day. People bringing in the Confederate flag to the Capitol building, that's an embarrassment. That's an American building. There should not be any flag but the American flag flown in there. And, it was a coup at the end of the day because people were trying to break in. They were trying to undo an election with no proof whatsoever of what went down. And it was an embarrassment. And again, anybody who broke the law that day, I've said this 10 times, I'll keep saying it. Anybody who broke the law that day should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That was not my Republican Party. That really wasn't. Those were complete nut jobs.
Right. It is not the Republican Party of Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
Correct. He would not be okay with this.
Okay, let's talk about the upcoming New York primary, which is this coming Tuesday, June 28th.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a clear race between the Democratic Party gubernatorial candidates Kathy Hochul and Tom Suozzi. So this is right now the talk of the town, okay? So my question to you is, What is your opinion about the Republican candidates? Can they ever come in the limelight?
So it depends who it is. I mean, I am in full support of Rob Astorino, who's running for governor. Um, and we like Rob a lot, and Rob is a bipartisan guy, and he worked well with Democrats, and he was able to pass eight straight budgets without raising taxes with Democrat support. So I think if he's the nominee, he can absolutely win, and I think he can thrust himself into the limelight and win over Democratic voters, independent voters, and common sense voters. If it's Lee Zeldin, I don't think the Republicans will even stand a chance. Lee Zeldin is a congressman that's way too nationalized. He's very divisive. He calls people names, and I think he doesn't have what it takes to turn New York State around. I think he's a polished politician. I think he cares about himself and how to enrich himself. I don't think he actually cares about us, the people. So if it's Lee Zeldin, I don't see the Republicans making any sort of comeback in the state. If it's Rob Astorino, or even Harry Wilson, who's a phenomenal businessman, I could see a lot of moderate people. I know a lot of moderate people that would vote for him, a lot of Democrats that would vote for him, both of them. And then the last nominee is Andrew Giuliani, and I don't think he has a shot at doing anything. I think he's just trying to run off of his father's name, and there's no way he can win this state. There's no way he can turn things around for this state. So it's going to take a good Republican, one who has a record of working with the other side. There's 2 Democrats in the state for every Republican, so you obviously need crossover voters. And the only 2 people who I think can get crossover support are Rob Astorino and Harry Wilson. I don't think Lee Zeldin or Giuliani
So
will get
coming back
crossover.
to Rob Astorino, I mean, he was the Westchester County executive 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
And then for the 3rd time, he could not win. And George Latimer is the current Westchester County executive.
Mm-hmm.
So I, went to his office a few times, and I personally feel that he's a great person. He has a very warm hospitality, the way he treats, colored people, the way he treats anybody, it's with a big respect. And there has been a lot of peace and a lot of, I would say, financial packages when he used to be the Westchester County executive. So if you can throw a little bit more light about Mr. Astorino's agenda and how he can be different either from Kathy Hochul and Tom Suozzi.
Sure. So I know that Rob wants to cut individual income taxes for middle class earners, which I'm sure, as you know, we have one of the highest income taxes in this country, in New York State. So cutting, 20% of an income tax bill could save the average New Yorker $5,000 a year in the long run if you cut each individual bracket by 20%. Mr. Astorino also said he wants to repeal the bail reform, the cashless bail reform, and fire the district attorneys that don't do their job. I think that's key, because in order for us to prosper in this country, we need to have basic things. We need to have safety, right? We need to have security. We need to have law and order. So Mr. Astorino, unlike Governor Hochul, would actually repeal the laws that are causing more danger to our streets. That in itself is a prime reason to vote for him. If you're sick and tired of seeing on the news all this crime, if you're sick and tired of seeing people who have been arrested 45 times for shoplifting keep getting out and causing more crime, then the current way of governing is not for you. If you want change, if you want safe streets, if you want the law enforced, you want to go with Mr. Astorino for that reason. He's also pushed for an upstate economic plan that would help downstate in terms of creating more nuclear power. We lost 25% of our nuclear power in the state when Indian Point closed, and that's caused our Con Ed and NYSEG bills to go up so much. So we need clean and safe nuclear power. We need clean and safe factory jobs as well to bring jobs back. And we need youth employment, which Rob has talked about as well. So I think he brings multiple things to the table. He brings a record. He created 44,000 jobs in Westchester when he was the executive. Private industry, not government, private industry jobs. He can do that on a statewide level. He'll repeal the cashless bail reform and stop these criminals from overrunning our streets. And he'll support the police with even more funding, not only for policing, but also for training, which everybody complains about training. So let's get the police more training for mental health, how to deal with mental health issues. That's key too. So I think if you care about taxes, if you care about the economy, if you care about crime, Rob Astorino is the way to go. He's going to change our state around. If you like the way New York is running, Kathy Hochul is your governor. If you don't like the way it's running, Rob Astorino should be your governor.
Aaron, I have a few questions regarding this primary.
Sure.
Do you think that Kathy Hochul will have some advantage being a woman, and as part the women's empowerment, entrepreneurship, and then freedom of speech? She's actually the current governor, but the thing is that how she became the governor, that is also, it's like Andrew Cuomo gave her a red carpet treatment that, hey, please come in, ma'am.
Right.
I'm being interrogated. I'm surrounded with some kind of sex scandal.
Right. Right.
I'm a complete mess. So you please come. And here it is, you take over. So this is one thing. Do you think that Kathy Hochul, see, even Tom Swazi, has a huge difference in opinion. If you see Tom Swazi's TV advertisements, and also if you see Tom Swazi's speeches, he also, completely disagrees, kind of what you are saying about Mr. Astorino. I think Mr. Swazi, they both have the same agenda against Ms. Hochul. So if you can throw a little bit more light on it.
Well, I think Hochul's big advantage is the fact that she has $18 million in her campaign account. I mean, $18 million goes a long way. So that in itself, plus she's an incumbent governor. Any incumbents win 90% of the time, especially in a primary. So she's an incumbent. People know who she is. Some people like the status quo. That's just how it is. Here's what I think is also a factor that nobody's talking about. The primary is June 28th, right? What happens at the end of June? School ends. People go on vacation, especially richer people. So Tom Swayze's from Long Island. There's a lot of money in Long Island. A lot of those people are going on vacation instead of going to vote. Kathy Hochul's from upstate, which is very poor. People really don't travel. It's very rural. So a lot of her voters are staying put. So I think you're also going to see discrepancy in who's coming out to vote. I think a lot of the richer people are not going to come out to vote. And I think a lot of the poor people will. And that's definitely going to help her out. But the fact that she has $18 million, I think, is her biggest advantage point. And I think that's going to help her tremendously. I mean, that's why Cuomo kept winning by such large margins. He's $25 million, $20 million. Yep.
Aaron, not only New York City, but the entire New York, there is a lot of violence, going on. And there has been a lot of fire, which have been devastating some families, recently in Bronx, then in Richmond Hill, I think South Richmond Hill in Queens. I don't think that much has been done, to stop all these things. Then government housing, they're in a very poor condition. It's a very poor condition. It's like, it's living there is like completely, it's a challenge, because there is no maintenance. There is zero maintenance or negative maintenance for years, for decades, So who is responsible for that? Do you think that a change is needed? How will Mr. Astorino, if elected, can bring a change in the housing and in the violence?
Yep. So one of the biggest issues with violence is, again, the cash bail. There's no cash bail on a lot of these crimes. So you have repeat offenders constantly being released. Astorino will stop that, because once you repeal that law, then these people will stay in prison until their court date dictates whether they're innocent or guilty. So not having repeated felons come out onto the streets just because we don't want to have bail is not a good policy solution. So violence will go down as the law is actually enforced and as cops are given the ability to do their job. Housing is a separate issue, because why do most people need affordable housing? Because it's in the name, right? Because most housing is unaffordable, because rent is too high, because taxes are too high. Now, why is that? Because government budgets are bloated and inflated, and we're not spending properly. And that's causing, massive increases in property taxes, which then is transferred into people's rent. So if you want actual, change in terms of affordability, you need more commercial property, because commercial property pays taxes, without sending any children into schools, which gives you a net positive of tax revenue. You need investment from businesses. You need factories and jobs created. You need income taxes slashed so you can keep people within the state. So we talk about affordable housing. To me, affordable housing is not government controlled artificially against the market. Affordable housing to me is creating a tax base that is diversified and paying enough into the system that the homeowners and then renters feel the trickle down from that and are awarded somewhat of a discount because of income coming in from other streams. When marijuana was legalized, all that tax money, where is it? We have all this tax money from marijuana. Where is it? Billions of dollars. It should be same with the lottery. This money should be used to help fund education. It should be helped offset property taxes. It should not be used for some political slush fund at the end of the day. So if we want affordable housing, we need to diversify our tax base and we need to better use our tax dollars when we can.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, the rents have gone up quite a bit, almost doubled, I guess. And then, people, they don't have a fixed, steady income. They have to pay so many bills at the end of the month, and it piles up, piles up, piles up. So it's a complete mess. So do you think that Mr. Astorino will be more kind, generous, and helpful to the lower middle class in particular?
Yes, I think he's going to slash income taxes. The average New Yorker is probably paying between 4 and 8% in income tax, depending on where your bracket is. So that's putting thousands up to $5,000 more dollars in a middle class pocket if you slash income taxes 20% for earners of 50 to 60 grand. So I do think he's going to be able to help the middle and lower class people by doing that. And also, once you bring industry back and industry starts paying taxes in New York State, that helps with some of these budget shortfalls. We are in for a very dire strait in the state. Here's why. Our budget went from $170 billion 2 years ago to $220 billion today. Most of it was paid for, this increase, with the federal aid that we got from the stimuluses, which we're now paying for with the inflation. What happens when that federal money runs out? They're going to have to cut something, right? So instead of cutting, what we need to do is find other ways to fund. And that includes bringing in jobs, bringing in factories that are going to pay taxes, bringing in businesses that are going to pay taxes, using the marijuana funds, using the lottery funds. I mean, where is all this money going? Seriously, where is this money going? And then fracking, I'm not a big fan of fracking, but Mr. Astorino has said that he will pursue fracking and that will create revenue for the state. So any revenue that's created for the state, a friend of mine always says, when government's funding, right, they have to take money and, they take it out of their right pocket or their left pocket, but it doesn't really matter where it comes from as long as it, pays for what we need to pay for. So I look at it as the taxpayers are our right pocket and all the industries are our left pocket. And if more money could be taken from our left pocket with the industry, it means there's going to be more money in our right pocket for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't want to cut anything, but I do think we need to diversify the way we collect our revenue. And if we can use industry and use commercial properties to generate more revenue for the state, for the cities, for the municipalities, then that means the people, the renters and the homeowners are not going to pay as much. So I think that's very key. And I think only the Republicans really right now are the ones pushing this. I don't believe Kathy Hochul is pushing it. She just gave $1 billion in subsidies to the Buffalo Bills. What do they need $1 billion in subsidies for? It doesn't make sense.
I know. I mean, Tom Swazi, he also has a lot of differences in opinion being in the same political party, but what to do, I mean.
I like Swazi. I really do. If he wins and it's him versus Zeldin, I'll vote for Swazi.
Really?
Yeah, no, I would. Swazi he's a moderate guy. I mean, I have no issue with him. I think he's very common sense oriented. I think he's a Democrat from the past, and I think more Democrats need to be like that. He's very common sense oriented. Again, if it was him versus Zeldin or him versus Giuliani, I'd vote for him. But I think it's going to be Hochul versus hopefully Astorino, and Rob's got my support 1,000%.
Of course. I mean, I'm also a staunch Democrat, but right now at the current situation, I keep my being Democrat in a side and, look from a wider and broader perspective that who can bring more on my plate, you know?
Which is Rob Astorino.
Yeah, he is a very nice person. I have a very good experience. So let's see. So
Absolutely.
I want to talk to you about the tropical climate, about this summer. See, a lot of people, they're traveling, okay? They
Hmm.
want to travel. Some people, they're traveling. Some people want to travel, but they cannot travel because aviation and cruise, they both are very expensive. And people like to enjoy tropical climate, not only Texas and Florida, but to Hawaii, and then going to Central and South America because it's really enjoyable. The passion fruits, the flowers, um, the overall scenery, the scenic beauty, sightseeing.
Hmm.
Of course, you know, the cruise packages, helicopter ride. But how is, in your opinion, tourism doing?
So right now
Mhm.
we have here's the couple issues going on, right? The pandemic obviously stopped most tourism and it was starting to bounce back, but the
Mhm.
inflation is killing the tourism industry because, as you said, people can't afford to travel right now. If people can't afford to pay their bills, 56% of Americans the other day said that they are being left behind with what's going on right now. Only 17% said that they're getting ahead. So, and everybody else said they're about the same. So, what does that tell you? When more than half of the people can't even pay their current bills, they sure as heck aren't going to take a vacation. They sure as heck aren't going to be traveling. And if they are, they're not going to be spending money. I mean, there was just a report out in the New York Times, too, that said, this guy, he went on a drive through Mississippi, basically, he was going, and then Louisiana for tourism. But he said, I wasn't spending as much money and I wasn't going into places that were charging and I was going into only like the free events. So even the people who are traveling, the people who can afford to travel, are being very conscious of where they're spending their money. So tourism, it hasn't completely bounced back from COVID, and now it's being hurt by the inflation and the economy as well. And, again, as long as people aren't getting ahead, they're not going to be able to travel. And for those that can travel, they're definitely being conscientious of how much they're spending because of the increases in prices of food, of hotels, of museums, of everything. So it's a like almost like a double whammy, if you will. Very few are traveling as is, and those that are traveling aren't spending. So I feel for the tourism industry. I don't know when it's going to bounce back, if it's going to bounce back.
Yeah, unless and until this Russo-Ukrainian war is stopped, this inflation will keep on increasing, and we will end up sending more billions to to Ukraine as an aid, you know,
And it's
financial.
sad because our sanctions did nothing. The Russians last month made 11% more off their oil revenue than they did, in previous years. So what does that tell you? They're making more money than ever before. The sanctions aren't working, and now they're stealing the wheat from the Ukrainian silos and selling it. They sent out letters to 10 African countries to sell wheat to Africa, Ukrainian wheat. So think about it. They paid nothing for it. They stole it. And now they're making a profit off of it. So these sanctions and this economic war we're going on with Russia, we're having with Russia, isn't even working. And who is paying for it? You and me. We're paying for it at the end of the day. The ruble is back to where it was. And who's getting hurt is us consumers. So I don't know what's going on here. Now we're spending, like you just said, we sent $44 billion to them. This is insanity. This is absolutely insanity. So I don't see the tourism industry bouncing back. Like you said, you made a good point that until this war ends, but even then, who knows what's going to happen because we don't have proper leadership in tackling some of these issues. And it's not all the leadership's fault, but there's certain policies that could be taken to lessen inflation and they're just not being taken. Why do we still have a federal tax on gasoline? That's 60 cents a gallon when some of the states have already repealed it. If we're willing to send $44 billion to Ukraine, but not willing to cut 58 cents a gallon for our people, then shame on our leaders.
I know. You know what? I mean, as I said, keeping my being Democrat in aside, I
Mhm.
always try to judge from a wider and broader perspective, which can be more productive. Many people, they're not very happy on our current commander in chief. And he is not doing that great as far the US economy is concerned, as far US security is concerned, because that's why there are so many gun violence. It is beyond control.
Hmm.
And he is been utterly criticized, not only by Russia and China, but so many countries. They have a complete disagreement with Biden's policy, with a lot of things that are ongoing in USA, internal and external issues.
Sure.
And even Saudi Arabia, they have made a mime, about Mr. Biden. And people, they're saying that he's physically and mentally unfit. He has dementia, and sometimes he's falling from his bike because of not being able to balance himself. So what is your comment about it as a closing statement?
I think we are empowering evil, and I will talk about. I'll explain why. And I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden he's still my president. I don't support him, but he's my president. But when we're dealing with Saudi Arabia, they have serious human rights violations, especially against the LGBTQ community. Why are we dealing with them? Why are we engaging with them when they won't even fix these humanitarian issues?
Mm-hmm.
Places like Venezuela and Iran, we're leveraging them for oil. This makes no sense. These are countries that hate us. These are countries that have state sponsors of terrorism within them. These are countries that have endangered other countries around them, that have hurt their own people. Why are we empowering them by even engaging in talks with them when the state of Texas has more oil than the entire Middle East combined in it? So we should be producing oil here in this country, not only for economic reasons, but for moral reasons. We are dealing with dictators.
But Aaron, we need a base in Middle East. It's
I agree.
more than an oil issue, man.
I agree with you there, absolutely. But for this, we're specifically talking about the oil. We need friends in the Middle East. We need allies in the Middle East. But why are we doing business with, we ran up in this last election, and one of the biggest issues was LGBTQ rights. So how can an LGBTQ activist actively support an administration that is engaging in economic talks with another administration that has humanitarian LGBTQ rights violations within them? It doesn't make sense to me. So I agree. We need more friends in the Middle East, and we definitely need a base out there. But we shouldn't have to compromise our values, or we should not be working with organizations or groups that are going against what we believe in. And I'm not saying we need to push democracy on the Middle East, because a lot of Middle Eastern countries don't want democracy, and I respect that, because you have to want what the people want. But I mean, these are humanitarian issues. People are being thrown off of buildings. People are being stoned to death in some of these countries for basic things. And I'm not trying to I'm not trying to demean, and I try to understand as best I can. I won't pretend that I understand everything going on over there, but there needs to be a line drawn at some point. If you have serious violations against your people and we're doing business with you, that means that we are complicit in that. That means we are okay with that. And morally, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that.
Mm-hmm. And another question, of this hour is, where is our VP? Where is our vice president? I mean, when she came in power, she gave very long, fat speeches, that she made so many promises. And people were craving to see the real empowerment of women, freedom of speech, entrepreneurship, women empowerment. So we saw Ms. Harris, and she's from the colored community. So people, they were very happy to see that a woman, finally, finally a woman. Yes, finally a woman.
Yes.
But where is she doing? If we see the history of our country, we have hardly seen Mr. Cheney, We haven't seen Dan Quayle, Mr. Cheney, then even Mr. Biden, when he used to be the VP in 2 terms, he used to stand behind Mr. Obama and kind of applause what he's used to say, addressing the nation. And The only time I personally saw a very active VP, it was Al Gore. Okay.
Mm,
So during the 2 terms of Mr. Clinton, and even Mike Pence, he's a very quiet man. I know he's a very kind of gentleman, kind of very, like, he talks very less because Mr.
mhm.
Trump, he's so
Right.
talkative. Oh my God. His tweets and all these things. So, what is overall the vice presidential role in this country? Why are VPs being so like in a mute mode? Is mute mode means a denial mode, or what is your justification?
Well, many people are saying that she's hiding because she doesn't want to deal with the disapproval ratings of the failures of the Biden administration, and it's ruining her political career moving forward. She'll never be president at this point because her approval rating is in like the 20s. Latino Americans, their approval rating of her is in the teens. She's not doing a good job. She said she was going to fix the southern border. She hasn't even gone there since. She's been absent. When you ask her serious questions, she just laughs on screen instead of answering it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
why?
very, I'm trying to support my vice president, but she's not a good leader here. And I wish her the best, but I don't see leadership in her. I actually, I think we should go back to the old days in the 1700s, which whoever lost the presidency automatically became the vice president. I think we should go back to that because then you would have vice president and president keeping each other in line and working together for common goal, common good. Now it's just like, who can I pick to be my VP to get me votes? I picked Mike Pence because I can get all the Christian votes. I picked Kamala Harris so I can get the West Indian community behind me. Why are we picking people based off of what they look like or who follows them? We should be picking
But
people
Aaron,
based
to
off
be
their
very
policies.
honest, the colored community, the blacks and the Hispanics and the South Asians, they are suffering the most at this point.
True, but she's not the one to fix it. If you look at her prosecutorial record when she was in San Fran, there were black men going to jail for years for possession of marijuana. If you're going to help the black community, how does that help the black community if you were the one that were locking up young black men for possession of marijuana?
And
So
there are so many, casualties by police and in police custodies. Like
yes,
amazing, I mean, it's just heartbreaking, I would rather
but
say.
she was the DA at that time. She was the one prosecuting this. So I don't buy that she's the one that's going to fix the issues facing the black community.
Yes. Hmm. And
I
criminal justice issue has also been criticized.
Yeah, and I also don't get how. I mean, this is just politics, but I don't get how she called Joe Biden a racist on stage in a debate, and then he picked her to be the vice president. So
Yeah.
if he's a racist, why are you his vice president? If he's not a racist, why did you say that during the debate? So this just goes to the phoniness of politicians on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. They'll say whatever they need to do to get elected. They'll say whatever they want on stage, and then they're best friends all of a sudden. Again, if she accused Joe Biden of racism for the busing incident back in the 70s on a debate stage, it's televised. I'm not making this up. And all of a sudden, she is his pick for vice president. It doesn't make sense. These politicians are phony and they don't have any actual solutions for anybody. So
Yeah.
I wish them luck. She's my vice president. He's my president. I wish them luck,
Right.
but I'm not confident in anything that they're doing right now.
One final question.
Sure.
Thing is, I mean, I personally, we all want a long life of Mr. Joe Biden. He's our commander in chief.
Yes.
But God forbid, he has been aging. There is a lot of physical, unfitness he's been going through. And I don't know about dementia. I don't want to comment on it, but people have seen him, like it's on record that he's been trying to shake hands with an imaginary personality. And then, he's losing his balance. And if, God forbid, anything happens to him, so then do you think that Kamala Harris will be our first woman president of the United States of America, although her ratings are kind of low, like below 20%?
Sure. So I'll answer the final question briefly because this is it's a very long conversation to answer that, but I'll answer briefly as best I can. So the Constitution states if something happens to the president, she's automatically the president. So it's not a matter of what I think; it's a matter of what the Constitution states. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Joe Biden is going to serve for the next 2 years. I don't think they're going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and I think he's going to lose re-election. But I don't think that we're going to have a President Harris at any time soon. I think I don't want to comment on Joe Biden's medical state. I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what's going on in his head. I have no idea what's going on with his physical health. But I think he's going to serve these next 2 years, and I don't think the 25th Amendment will be invoked. And if, God forbid, something happens, then she will be the president. But that's a constitutional issue, not necessarily a pundit issue.
Right. So anyway, you have a great day and enjoy with your father, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. It's also Juneteenth, so happy Juneteenth. So happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. Thank you for having me on, and we will definitely talk soon.
Yeah, of course, with completely new issues this time, not with the ongoing issues and stuff, so next time when you come, we'll talk about it. And thank you so much for your valuable, precious time. I know that you do a lot of volunteer work, and plus you study a lot. You do researches. You are helping Mr. Astorino. Then you have a full-time job. Then you deal with the real estate issues also. So in spite of all these hectic issues, you have been consistently giving time every month to Asavari and bringing many new information on our plate and educating me and my audience at the same time. I have no words to say. A big thank you to our star speaker, Mr. Aaron Spring.
Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you. Good to see you.
Thank you.